So it's going.
Howdy doody everybody. Now I'm David Shapcott. I live in Auckland, New Zealand. Now a little while ago I sent away for my DNA results to check out on my ancestry. Now I was very confident when I sent the results, I sent the sample off, that I was going to come back with a big percentage of Jewish. Why? Because I was brought up to believe that this man here, Emmanuel Eben, was my ancestor. Now Emmanuel Eben, I was told, had married Emma Wilson, who's here, not a very good photo of her, but that's her, in 1844, and they came out to New Zealand and moved into Nelson, and they had a daughter called Eleanor, and Eleanor is my mum's great-grandmother. So going back to Emmanuel Eben, I believed he was my great-great-grandfather. You know, all reasonable. So away I sent off to get my DNA results. Now I was especially pleased to see how much Jewish I had in me, because my friend the Colonel, he strongly identifies as Jewish. He intends to be born into Israel in his second life, and he constantly refers to the Jewish people as my people. Now I was chortling and saying to him, ha! When I get my results back, I bet I'm more Jewish than you are, because at least I know who my ancestor is, whereas you don't know who your Jewish ancestor is. So imagine how I felt when the results came back. And here they are, dear people. Just check these babies out. Now this is what I got back. 98% European. What? Great Britain 73%? I don't believe it. 73%. They were the great colonisers of the world. They upset most of the... I don't want to identify with these people. Scandinavia, 8%. Okay, the Scandinavians cruise on down to England from time to time. I can take that. Europe West, 7%. Now I know about that because Emma Wilson's great-grandfather was a French guy. He was the first Frenchman to go across the English Channel in a balloon. So, you know, I can own him. Then the rest of it, bit from Italy and Greece, bit from Ireland, bit from Finland, northwest Russia. Okay, that's 98%. Well, where's the other 2% come from? So we go off and we discover that we're looking at 2% Asia, South. Now I was very excited about this, because I thought, now although I don't identify as Jewish, and I thought I had Jewish blood, I identify more as Vietnamese, as you can see by my garb, and in fact I'm hoping in the next life to come back as a Vietnamese person. I admire these people immensely because of how they won the wars against the French, the Americans, the Chinese and the Cambodians. Great admiration. So, okay, so I'm looking around more. Now where can we find European Jewish? 0%. 0%. What the hell is that all about? Zero. What about Emmanuel Eben? Yeah, but my great-great-grandfather. Why haven't I got any of his DNA in me? So we go to Europe, to Asia South, and we go to the map that they gave me here, and they have ringed India, as you can see. Now here is what I think happened. That Emmanuel Eben, Emma Wilson's father was an arms dealer for the British Raj in India, and he used to regularly go across in the ships to India to take arms for the British Army there. While he was over there on one occasion, he met a beautiful Indian girl and started making out with her, and she got pregnant and they had a daughter. She said to him, look, I can't take this daughter back to my family because she's part European. The family would never accept it. And so Mr. Wilson said, well, look, I'll tell you what, I will take the girl back to England and bring her up as my own daughter, because she is my own daughter. What was he going to tell his wife? Well, this is what I think he said. He arrived home with this little girl and said, look, while I was in India, I was a very, very keen Christian, as you know, and I always went to church. Now the minister said, we've got a Eurasian girl in the orphanage. Nobody wants her. The Indians don't want her because she's part English. The English don't want her because she's part Indian. So I thought the Christian thing for us to do would be to adopt her and raise her as our own. So that's what I've done. And his wife would have thought, what a fine Christian man. So that's how come I've got this 2% Indian, that in fact Emma, when she was born, is in fact half Indian. So their first daughter they had was called Eleanor, who I'm descended from. So how come I've got no Jewish, you ask? And in fact, my mum, here's a picture of my mum here, with my aunt and me, when I was a baby. These two were called the Jewish girls in their community, because everybody just assumed they were descended from Emmanuel Eben, and they looked Jewish. They sure looked Jewish. And when you look at me, here's a picture of me when I was young, you can't tell it today, but, you know, compare me to Emmanuel Eben. Don't I look like one of his descendants? I think so. So, I think what had happened was that Eleanor, who was Emma's first daughter, was in fact not Emmanuel's child. But that what had happened was that Emma got pregnant to some other English guy who was probably married, and so, or for whatever reason, wasn't going to marry her. And so Emmanuel, being a fine fellow, decided he offered to marry her and bring the girl up as his own, and so save Emma's reputation, because, you know, in those days pregnancy outside marriage was just a absolute no-no. And so Eleanor, the daughter, not from Emmanuel, but from some dastard English chap, is my ancestor, and I've come from her. So, and the 2% Indian would, and the 7% French would account for it, so that mum therefore is probably about 4% Indian and about 14% French, which is where her dark looks come from, and not from the Jewish ancestors as we'd always believed. So so there was a little scandal, which in many ways I'm glad that Mum isn't alive today to learn about, because Mum was a fine Christian lady, and she would be horrified to think that one of her ancestors was making out before she got married. And not only that, but delivering a child who was not the child of her future husband. So, you know, Mum would be mortified. But me, I'm happy to think that, well, I mightn't be Jewish, but at least I'm part Indian and part French. But I have to say, the other thing that really upsets me is that if I'd been born in Nazi Germany with my background, Hitler would have shoved me into the SS. And I don't want to join the SS, these racist organisations. And if I got arrested in America for some terrible crime and got thrown into jail for a long time, where they have gangs in those places, the Aryan Brotherhood would demand that I join them. I don't want to join the Aryan Brotherhood. I want to join the Vietnamese gang. Well, I don't really want to join a gang, but if I'm joining anyone, I want to join the Vietnamese, or even the Jewish, even though I've got zero Jewish in me. I look a little bit like Jewish, don't I? And hopefully I might even look a bit Vietnamese. Well, that's my story, folks. So thank you very much for watching.